always loved that character.
What if I told you that one of Hollywood's most unpredictable actors didn't just spend his fortune on castles, dinosaur skulls, and shrunken pygmy heads? Yes, all of that actually happened, but also quietly assembled one of the most jaw-dropping, historically significant, and genuinely priceless car collections that the celebrity world has ever seen. A collection so extraordinary that even seasoned auction house experts had to pause and catch their breath when the cars started coming to the surface. Stick around, because by the time we get to number 1, your jaw will be on the floor. Hi, my name is Johnny, and this is American Muscle. Chapter 1. The Man Behind the Machines. To understand Nicolas Cage's car collection, you first have to understand Nicolas Cage the human being. And I use the term human being loosely, because this is a man who legally changed his name from Nicolas Coppola. Yes, he is the nephew of Francis Ford Coppola, the godfather of the Godfather. Specifically so he could make it on his own without riding on family connections. He took the name Cage partly as a tribute to the Marvel comic book character, Luke Cage. Right away, you know this is someone who operates on a completely different frequency from the rest of us. At the height of his earning power, Cage was pulling in $20 million per film. He won an Academy Award. He became a legitimate Hollywood icon. And then he spent everything. We are talking 15 homes across multiple countries, a private island in the Bahamas, a castle in England, another castle in Germany, 2 castles. The man bought 2 castles. He purchased a genuine Tarbosaurus skull for $276,000 that later turned out to have been illegally excavated from Mongolia and had to be returned to the government. This is the level of person we are dealing with. But here is the thing about Nicolas Cage that most people miss when they are busy laughing at the headlines. Underneath all of the eccentricity, underneath the shrunken pygmy heads and the Bavarian fortresses, there was a man with a genuine and deeply serious passion for automobiles. Not just any automobiles, rare ones, historic ones. Cars with stories attached to them that go back decades. Cars that belonged in museums. And in several cases, cars that were literally irreplaceable. When the IRS came for him in 2009 with a bill of over $6 million in back taxes, Cage was forced to liquidate massive portions of his collection. And that liquidation gave the world a rare window into just how extraordinary his taste in cars actually was. Let's count them down. Number 10, 1971, Lamborghini Miura SVJ. We are starting this list at number 10, and we are already in serious territory. The 1971 Lamborghini Miura SVJ. Let me just let that sit for a second. The Miura is widely regarded as the car that invented the modern supercar. Before the Miura, supercars did not really exist as a concept. This was the car that changed everything. Unveiled at the Geneva Motor Show in 1966, it stunned the entire automotive world with its mid-mounted V12 engine, its impossibly low roofline, and its breathtaking Bertone bodywork. It was not just a fast car, it was a cultural moment. Now, the SVJ variant, and this is where it gets truly special, was the rarest and most extreme version of the Miura ever produced. SVJ stands for Spinto Veloce Joda, and only a handful of genuine SVJ examples are believed to exist in the world today. We are talking about single-digit numbers here. Some automotive historians put the figure at around 5 genuine SVJ cars, 5, on the entire planet. Cage's example was finished in a striking yellow exterior, which feels extremely on brand for the man. Under the hood sat a 4-liter V12 engine producing around 385 horsepower, which by today's standards might not sound earth-shattering, but in 1971, this car was flying. 0 to 60 in around 5.5 seconds, with a top speed approaching 180 miles per hour. At auction, genuine Miura SVJ examples have fetched anywhere between $2 million and $4 million, depending on provenance and condition. Cage's example, given its rarity and documented ownership history, sits comfortably toward the upper end of that range. Not a bad way to start a car collection. Number 9, Ferrari Enzo. Moving to number 9, and we are climbing fast, the Ferrari Enzo. Named directly after the founder of the company himself, Enzo Ferrari, this car was Ferrari's way of saying, here is everything we know. Everything we have learned from Formula One, everything we are capable of, wrapped in one road legal package. They only made 400 of them. 400 for the entire world. Cage's Enzo was finished in the classic Rosso Corsa red that Ferraris have been famous for since the earliest days of Grand Prix racing. And honestly, is there any other color you would choose for a Ferrari named after Enzo himself? I don't think so. Johnny would not choose any other color either, for the record. The Enzo was powered by a 6-liter naturally aspirated V12 engine, producing 651 horsepower at 8,000 revolutions per minute. 0 to 60 came up in 3.6 seconds. Top speed was just over 217 miles per hour. And it achieved all of this without a single turbocharger, without any hybrid assistance, just pure, screaming Italian combustion fury. When new in 2002, the Enzo carried an MSRP of approximately $650,000. Today, well-maintained examples regularly sell for over $3 million at auction, in some cases, significantly more. Cage's example, given the provenance of his collection and the documentation attached to it, would comfortably clear that figure on any given auction day. 400 cars, $3 million each. You do that math and realize Ferrari essentially printed money with this one. Number 8, 1955, Jaguar D-Type. Number 8 is where things get genuinely historic. The 1955 Jaguar D-Type. This is not just a collector's car. This is a racing car, a real one. One that competed at the highest levels of motorsport at a time when motorsport was genuinely, lethally dangerous, and the men behind the wheel knew it. The D-Type was Jaguar's works racing car developed specifically to compete at Le Mans, which, for the uninitiated, is the 24 Hours of Le Mans in France, the oldest and most prestigious endurance race in the world. The D-Type won Le Mans outright in 1955, 1956, and 1957. 3 consecutive years. It dominated the race the way very few cars have dominated anything before or since. Jaguar produced approximately 71 D-Types in total, 71 cars. For context, Ferrari made 400 Enzos, and we just called that rare. The D-Type makes the Enzo look practically mass-produced. Cage's D-Type was a genuine period example with documented racing history, which in the collector car world is the difference between a very valuable car and an almost priceless one. A D-Type in similar condition to Cage's example sold at Sotheby's for $21.78 million in 2022, $21 million, for a car that was built when Dwight Eisenhower was in the White House. This is the kind of car that does not belong in a garage. It belongs in the Louvre, and Nicolas Cage had one sitting in his collection. Of course he did. Number 7, 2004 Porsche Carrera GT. Number 7 brings us to a car that carries an enormous amount of weight, both mechanically and emotionally, the 2004 Porsche Carrera GT. Now the Carrera GT is considered by many serious automotive journalists and engineers to be one of the most demanding and unforgiving supercars ever built for road use. Porsche gave it a 5.7-liter, naturally aspirated V10 engine, borrowed directly from a Le Mans prototype race car program that was ultimately cancelled, producing 605 horsepower, 0 to 60 in 3.5 seconds, top speed of 205 miles per hour, and absolutely no electronic stability control of any meaningful kind. Porsche basically handed you a missile and said, "Good luck. I need to mention something here that you already know." In November of 2013, actor Paul Walker was killed in a crash involving a 1993 Porsche Carrera GT in Valencia, California. It was a tragedy that shook Hollywood and the automotive world simultaneously and cast a long shadow over what is genuinely a masterpiece of engineering. The Carrera GT is not a dangerous car because it was badly designed. It is demanding because it was designed for people who truly know how to drive. The margin for error is simply very small. Cage owned his Carrera GT during the height of his collection years, and the car represented something important about his taste. He was not collecting cars for show. He was collecting cars that had teeth. When new, the Carrera GT retailed for around $440,000. Today, strong examples sell for $1.5 to $2 million at auction. The rarity of well-documented examples has only driven that number higher in recent years. Number 6, 1958, Ferrari 250 GT Pininfarina Cabriolet. Number 6. And now we are firmly in the territory of rolling art. The 1958 Ferrari 250 GT Pininfarina Cabriolet. Say that name slowly. 1958 Ferrari 250 GT Pininfarina Cabriolet. Every single word in that name costs money. The 250 GT series is one of the most celebrated families of automobiles Ferrari ever produced. And the Pininfarina Cabriolet variant, bodied by the legendary Italian coach building house Pininfarina, whose relationship with Ferrari dates back to the very origins of the company, is regarded as one of the most beautiful open-top cars ever constructed by human hands. That is not my opinion. That is the consensus of basically every automotive design expert who has ever studied the car. Powered by Ferrari's 3-liter Colombo F12 engine producing around 240 horsepower, the 250 GT was not just a pretty face. For its era, it was genuinely rapid, with a top speed of around 155 miles per hour. But here is the number that makes your eyes water. Documented examples of the 250 GT Pininfarina Cabriolet have sold at auction for between $8 and $14 million. Some rare variants within the 250 family, specifically the GTO, have sold for over $70 million, making them among the most expensive cars ever auctioned in human history. Cage's example sat in the lower but still extraordinary end of that spectrum. 8 figures for a car that was built during the Eisenhower administration. Nicolas Cage, ladies and gentlemen. Number 5, Lamborghini Diablo. Number 5, and we are shifting gears, literally and figuratively, the Lamborghini Diablo. And if you know anything about Lamborghini naming conventions, you already know that Diablo means devil in Spanish. This car was named after a legendary fighting bull, as most Lamborghinis are, but the name suited the car's personality perfectly. The Diablo was Lamborghini's flagship supercar from 1990 to 2001, and it was the car that kept the company alive during one of the most turbulent periods in its history. It replaced the iconic Countach, another car that defined an era, and had to somehow live up to that legacy while pushing the performance envelope even further. Powered by a 5.7-liter V12 engine in its original configuration, producing 492 horsepower, the Diablo offered 0 to 60 in 4.1 seconds, and a top speed of just over 200 miles per hour. It was the first production car ever to break the 200 mile per hour barrier, which at the time was a genuinely historic milestone. Now here's the thing about Cage and the Diablo. This car absolutely fits the man's personality. It is excessive. It is dramatic. It is the kind of car that demands attention the moment it rolls into view. And just like Cage's best performances, it does not do anything quietly. Well-preserved Diablo examples today fetch between $200,000 and $400,000, depending on specification and condition. Cage's example, with its documented ownership history, sits toward the upper end of that bracket. Number 4, BMW M5 E39. Number 4 is the one on this list that surprises people, and that surprise is exactly the point. The BMW M5 E39 generation, built from 1998 to 2003. Among serious car enthusiasts, the E39 M5 is spoken about in almost reverential tones. It is the car that Jeremy Clarkson famously described as the greatest car in the world when it was new. Not the greatest saloon, not the greatest German car, the greatest car. Full stop. Powered by a 4.9-liter S62 V8 engine producing 394 horsepower and 402 Newton-meters of torque, the E39 M5 could accelerate from 0 to 60 in 4.8 seconds and reach an electronically limited top speed of 155 miles per hour. Though D-restricted examples were capable of significantly more, what made it extraordinary was the combination of things it could do simultaneously. It was a genuine 4-door family saloon that could carry your luggage, your family, and your groceries. And then, when the road opened up, it could embarrass almost any sports car of its era. It was invisible in traffic and devastating on track. The fact that Nicolas Cage, a man who owned Lamborghini Diablos and Ferrari Enzos, also kept an E39 M5 tells you something important. He was not just buying trophies. He understood cars. He appreciated what the M5 represented. And that makes the collection feel even more credible. Clean examples today sell for $40,000 to $80,000, modest by this list's standards, but priceless in terms of what it says about the collector. Number 3. McLaren MP4-12C. Number 3, and we are back in supercar territory. The McLaren MP4-12C. Introduced in 2011, this was McLaren's first serious road car since the legendary F1 of the 1990s, and the company had a lot to prove. They proved it. The MP4-12C, which McLaren later simplified to just the 12C, was powered by a 3.8-liter twin-turbocharged V8 engine producing 625 horsepower. 0 to 60 came up in 3.1 seconds. Top speed of 207 miles per hour, and it achieved all of this while somehow remaining usable on public roads on a daily basis, which is something that several of the other cars on this list absolutely cannot claim. What separated the 12C from its competition at the time, primarily the Ferrari 458 and the Lamborghini Gallardo, was its technology. The carbon fiber monocell chassis, the proactive chassis control suspension system, the seamlessly quick 7-speed dual-clutch gearbox. McLaren brought Formula One engineering to the road in a way that felt genuinely different from anything else available. When new, the MP4-12C carried a base price of approximately $230,000. Today, clean examples trade between $150,000 and $220,000, making them one of the better value propositions in the modern supercar market. Cage's example was finished in a striking metallic finish and represented his connection to modern British engineering, a thread that runs through several of the most significant cars in his collection. Number 2, 1954 Ferrari 500 Mondial number 2. And this is the moment where the list ascends from extraordinary into something approaching sacred, at least for anyone who truly loves the history of motorsport. The 1954 Ferrari 500 Mondial. The Mondial was Ferrari's sports racing car of the early 1950s, built to compete at the highest levels of international motorsport during one of the most romantic and dangerous eras the sport has ever known. The name Mondial means world in Italian, a reference to the World Sports Car Championship in which these cars competed. Ferrari produced the 500 Mondial in extremely limited numbers. We are talking about approximately 33 examples across the entire production run. 33 cars, built in the early 1950s, with documented racing histories. You can count on your hands and have fingers left over the number of examples that have been preserved in anything close to original condition. Cage's example was a genuine period racing car with provenance documentation that traced its history back to its original competition use. In the collector car market, provenance like that is worth almost as much as the car itself. At auction, examples of the 500 Mondial have sold for figures ranging from $2 to $4 million, depending on their specific history and condition. Cage's example, given its documentation and the prestige of its origins, would comfortably achieve figures at the very top of that range on today's market. This is a car that raced while Fangio was still driving. Let that sink in. Number 1, 1971 Ferrari Daytona Spider. And here we are, number 1, the crown jewel, the car that sits at the absolute top of Nicolas Cage's automotive legacy, the 1971 Ferrari Daytona Spider. Now, let me give you some background first, because the full story of this car is absolutely wild and it is very Nicolas Cage. The Ferrari 365 GTB4, known universally as the Daytona, was unveiled in 1968 at the Paris Motor Show and immediately became one of the most celebrated Ferraris ever built. The name Daytona was not official, Ferrari never called it that, but it was given by the press and public in honor of Ferrari's 1-2-3 finish at the 1967 Daytona 24 Hours race. The name stuck immediately and has never left. The Spider, the open-top convertible variant of the Daytona, was produced in even more limited numbers than the coupe. Ferrari built approximately 122 genuine Spider examples, 122 open-top Daytonas for the entire world. Additionally, a number of coupes were converted to Spider specification by coach builders, some with Ferrari's blessing and some without. which makes authentication of genuine Spyders absolutely critical and enormously consequential for value. Now here is where the Nicolas Cage story takes its characteristically extraordinary turn. His 1971 Daytona Spider was a well-documented genuine example, not a converted coupe, an actual factory Spider, finished in a stunning red exterior with a tan leather interior. He reportedly purchased the car for somewhere in the region of $1 million during the height of his collecting years, which at the time was already a serious commitment. Under the hood, the Daytona Spider carried Ferrari's 4.4-liter Colombo, a DAM12 engine producing 352 horsepower at 7,500 revolutions per minute, 0 to 60 in 5.4 seconds, and a top speed of 174 miles per hour. These numbers do not sound shocking by modern standards, but the way this car delivered its performance, the sound of that naturally aspirated V12 climbing toward its red line with the top down on an open road, is something that no specification sheet can ever fully capture. When Cage was forced to begin liquidating his collection under pressure from the IRS, the Daytona Spider was among the most high-profile sales, and the number it achieved reflected exactly how significant the car was. Comparable genuine Daytona Spider examples have sold at auction for between $3 and $6 million in recent years, with exceptional documented examples achieving even higher. Cage's car, with its impeccable provenance and documented ownership history, achieved a figure that placed it firmly among the top-tier sales in Ferrari collector history. To own one genuine Daytona Spider is to own a piece of the absolute golden age of Ferrari. To own one as documented and as authentic as Cage's example is something that most collectors, even the wealthiest ones on Earth, will never experience. And that is ultimately what makes Nicolas Cage's car collection so remarkable. Yes, there were financial disasters. Yes, the IRS came knocking. Yes, the castles and the dinosaur skulls and the shrunken heads made headlines for all the wrong reasons. But underneath all of that chaos was a man with an extraordinary eye for automotive history. A man who did not buy cars to be seen in them. A man who sought out pieces of mechanical history that most collectors do not even know exist, let alone know how to find. He was not just a celebrity with a garage full of expensive toys. He was, and I say this with complete sincerity, one of the most genuinely interesting automotive collectors of his generation, and that is the Nicolas Cage car collection. From the Lamborghini Miura SVJ at number 10 all the way up to the Ferrari Daytona Spider, sitting at the top of the pile. A collection that spanned decades of automotive history, multiple continents of engineering tradition, and one of the most turbulent personal financial stories in Hollywood history. If you enjoyed this video, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button, because we have a lot more collections coming your way on American Muscle. I'm Johnny, thanks for watching. Now, if you will excuse me, I need to go stare at pictures of Ferrari Daytonas for the next 3 hours. Don't judge me.